Yeah. What up? This is Mike Perkins, one half of Mike and Vince Perkins, one half of MVP, one half of Opinions Alike podcast, and for this here, I am the whole show. Um, let's see. Um, I did a live with my brother maybe a couple days ago, so Saturday, and we were talking about culture, you know, and just really talking about the love versus practicality thing. If you see it, um, you should check it out. It's like 2 hours. Listen to it like at 1.5, two times the speed. It's really it's really good. I think it's really good. Again, I always have a like I when I listen to my brother talk, of which he's a good guy. He's a really good dude. Um, but a lot of the things that are kind of said in the space, the idea of alphaing your way through it, um, really comes to mind. The idea of, you know, um, kind of dealing in the same culture and expecting something different, and what the culture just produces. Um, a lot of times, and let me just address first, like saying culture X. Um, I think a lot of times that, and I personally have to start pushing myself into a different direction. How I address certain things, because I realize that certain things are off-putting when you say it. Um, so like when you're saying black culture or black women or whatever, I'd rather say now women who identify with culture X, because it's not all black women that associate themselves with culture X, and not all people who associate with culture X are black. So I'll just say culture X from now on. For me, I'll just say culture X. You know what I'm saying? I think it sort of undermines the argument, and then you get into a thing where you're talking about, well, all black women aren't like this, all women don't do this, all women don't do that. Okay, cool. Let's just talk about the women who actually do the thing, so that we don't have to talk about anything else other than those women as a means to identify a problem and kind of source it out and move on, so that we're not dealing with the same problem kind of over and over again. But we have to have a way to identify the problem or identify the pool in order to like get away from said problem. And I think that what my brother has a problem with, or just rejects, is even talking about the problem, because he thinks that it allows for a person, or it makes a person, then pick in that problem. Like, if you keep saying bad women, bad women, bad women, well, then you're just gonna get bad women. You know what I mean? If you keep saying I don't want bad women, then you're just gonna get bad women. If you keep talking about the problem, then the problem is just gonna persist. And of course, I disagree. I think that there's a contingency of men who understand what the problem is, but most off men are not like walking around understanding the actual problem. So there's no such thing as saying the problem and it doesn't exist. They don't all do it, but they all do it. Yeah, of course, they all do. They all do it, but they all don't do it. But um, the uh, the issue that I always have in never addressing the problem is that these you get these situations where you're having conversations with women on panels, and just women in actual being in an actual relationship. You know what I mean? And your woman will talk or speak to the problem as being a communication problem, for example. Whereas you're not hearing me, or I'm saying this and you're saying that. And a lot of times, talking about the problem, should identify the problem. Yes, of course. And what up, Paul Gang? But if you don't address the thing before the thing, which is culture, then it kind of it negates having a conversation about communication. So like the reason a lot of times I reject the books, um, like the love language, for example, which is a popular book that people tend to go to. The reason I reject that is because the book never addresses a woman saying that she's strong and independent and don't need no man, for example. Well, if a woman fundamentally believes she doesn't need you, well then fuck what her love language is. Because before we can get to her love language, we have to address the fact that she doesn't think that she needs me. You know what I'm saying? We have to address, like, if she doesn't think that male leadership is necessary and she only sees it as oppressive, well then we have to address that first before we get to communication or her love language, because she believes fundamentally that my job and my responsibility to her is oppressive, you know? And so before we can actually get to this thing where we're even having a relationship, we have to address the culture issue so that we can have the relationship that you may say you want to have. And so that a lot of times when people you see people who say, well, the gender warring is negative. Of course it is, because it's not coming from a genuine place. Where it's coming from is a place whereas people want to be right, and they want to believe that if you just put your head down and just do it, or alpha your way through it, then you'll get the result that you want. And there's really no way of doing that. You know, you can't just, you can keep bumping your head up against the same wall, but ultimately that's just what it's going to be. It's going to be you bumping your head up against the same wall, and you know, identifying the problem. Even like nobody even sees a problem with the over sexualization of boys. Like, I don't give a fuck if Dwayne, for example, I don't give a fuck if Dwayne Wade's son believes he's a girl, or feels like a girl, or is a girl, right? Let's respect the whole thing. Dwayne Wade's daughter. You know what I mean? I do, however, care that his daughter, if we're calling uh, her a daughter, is being sexualized. Like, I have a problem with that, because I got kids and I don't think that kids should be sexualized, so that strapless this and shoulders out that and posing with other little kids suggestively. Like, that's like, I don't give a fuck whether you think you're a girl or not. You can think that all day. The problem is the over sexualization of biological boys, but nobody sees that as a problem. And it's just like, yeah, that's a culture issue. What do you think then? So you think that you're going to come from a space, whereas like the last, maybe like, like last month, we had like two pictures that were like circulating in the internet, where it's just like a boy was like basically kissing his mom upside down, like the Spider-Man kiss. And another picture, I think I used it as a thumbnail, whereas a little boy was kind of biting his mom's lip. And then you got maybe like a couple years before that, you had like Jess Hilarious, who was posing naked with her son, something ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? And then, but you'll have these things, they're photo shoots. One, the obvious thing for me is that, no man could ever get away with this stuff. You know what I'm saying? There's no way can a man get away with this stuff. But you think that those kind of dudes are gonna then have those kind of moms, and then they're gonna grow up and then somehow be productive, husbands and fathers? Like, no, they're not. But if we can't address the problem, of which I think that only maybe 5% of people even understand the problem, then it kind of, whatever you're working toward, it's not going to work, because you're not addressing the obvious problem that comes before everything, which is the cultural problem. So the conversation with my brother, it got a little frustrating for me, I would say. I was a bit frustrated, you know what I mean, in having the conversation, just from the standpoint of I don't believe that what I'm saying is negative. I believe it's more reporting what's going on until there are people who hear it. And for the people who hear it and understand it, they can, certainly, you know, certainly be moved by it enough to do something about it. At least extract themselves away from the problem, but certainly do something different from what has been done. Because the thing that has been done is just alpha your way through it, and all of the things that I hear dudes consistently complain about are pretty much consistent. Now one would say, well, the women complain about stuff too, and it's consistent as well. The difference is that the way that women pick in culture X, you know what I mean? The way that women pick in culture X it's repetitive, you know, in the sense that it's not even repetitive in the kind of guy, it's kind of repetitive in the guy. It's a new guy surfacing around 15 baby mamas, whatever. Do you think that from a cultural standpoint, that you're going to have one of those women become good wives? It's 15 of them, but the way that some people think is that there's somehow some people are salvageable. And I don't believe that. I believe sometimes you got to just leave people alone. And I think it's, I mean, I've only really heard Ed Anderson say it, but I'm pretty sure he got it from somewhere. Your greatest power is your power of choice. And at a certain point, you have to exercise that power of choice, or really when you don't and you just relegate yourself to the same pool, the same culture, you taking away your power of choice and you're powerless. So no matter how hard you work, you're trying to move an immovable object at a certain point. And you have to understand that what you're doing is that you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, in the relationship. And women don't give up their advantage. Like, no way would a woman ever just say, you know what, I have this advantage, but I'm not going to take it. They take the advantage. When they're talking about the advantage in the courtroom, they take their advantages. For us to not speak about that is the reason that a lot of dudes go in the courtroom unprepared, because we don't talk about it. I went in there unprepared. Granted, I came out on the other end with 50-50 custody, but me coming out with 50-50 custody it's not because I understood what the problem is. It's because I was just there. And I don't have a criminal record. And my ex-wife, fortunately for me, wasn't as resourceful. Because if she wanted to do what she was trying to do, she would have done it, and it would have been done. And I would have been cooked, and I would have been seeing my kids every other weekend and Tuesday, you know. But because we don't talk about what the problem actually is, and we just want to put our head down and believe that it'll fix itself, you know what I mean? As opposed to at least acknowledging that it exists so we can at least avoid it. Maybe not even fix it, at least avoid it, you know, because we just refuse to add that because it's so negative, right? We're always putting ourselves in a position to keep bumping our head on the same thing. It's questions that I ask, you know what I'm saying? Well, this is a problem. Would you agree? Yes, I agree. Well, do you think that you've had that same problem in every relationship that you've been in? Well, yes, of course. Well, then what's the fucking problem? Why wouldn't you pick something different? Like, what's the problem? Why is me saying don't leave them alone? Why is me saying that so it's not wrong? You know, and I don't think he thinks it is wrong. I just think that he's like, well, I'm not there yet, you know. And not being there yet is really no excuse. Like, ignorance is no excuse. You know what I'm saying? You know, ignorance of the law is no excuse. You know, ignorance of the game is no excuse. You know, like, is it fair? Is it unfair? I mean, I think that's neither here nor there. But if I went in that courtroom and I lost my kids, it happened. You know, it would have happened just as well as if I go in there and I get 50-50 custody. It's the same game. Ignorance of the game is no excuse. Ignorance of your environment, ignorance of the culture, the pool that you're swimming in, ignorance of it is no excuse. They eat you up out here. Doesn't matter you didn't know that you was in a Crip neighborhood and you was wearing red. Doesn't matter. Ignorance is not an excuse, you know? You know what I mean? And you can avoid it, or you can understand that it exists and be like, hey man, look, this is what you do to kind of avoid that shit. But you gotta know what you're avoiding. You gotta know the context of what you're avoiding, because it also helps you to make better decisions going forward and to inform other people. You know, but to just merely just dismiss the conversation about the problem, it's really, I just think it's, you know what I mean, with all due respect to anybody, I mean, it's certainly my brother, you know what I'm saying, it's naive at best. You know, it's one of those things where I don't know, like I mean, I guess the only I sometimes I get offended because I think people are saying, you know, it's beneath them to talk like, you know, I talk or we talk or whatever. It's beneath them. And the idea that it's beneath them is really like one of those things where I'm just like, beneath you in what way? You know, I'm just a positive thinker. It's just like, no, you're not a positive thinker, you're a magical thinker. You know, that's not positivity, that's magic. Positive is something different, you know, of which, I mean, I don't think that anything I'm saying is negative, and anything that I have said is negative. I just think to the extent that things are happening, it's like stuff is accelerating, you know, and the more and more it accelerates, the more and more you get people, I don't know, people are putting themselves behind the eight ball. You know, people are putting themselves in very, very compromising positions. You know what I'm saying? And not understanding, like, on some level, like this, nobody owes you to save you from it. Once you, like, if you pick a woman and she's again a part of culture X, you know, then something bad happens. You don't get to say, well, well, that's not fair. You know, it is fair. People lose their kids every day, B. You know, it doesn't matter that you did everything right, you know, because you can do everything right and then nothing happens, right? You got to know the game. You got to understand the game. You know, got to understand what's going on around you. You know, he had a part where he said, I just feel like if I play the game the right way, then I feel like, or if I don't play the game or don't play games, that somehow then I get to just avoid that. And I'm like, nah, because the game is going. The game don't stop because you ain't playing. The game keeps going. Absolutely keeps going. And, you know, enough times, you know, that's what I thought. I thought if I did everything right, if I worked hard, if I, you know what I'm saying, brought it back to the crib, if I, you know, paid all the bills, if I was faithful, if I was a generally decent guy, if I, you know what I'm saying, did everything, you know, that was asked of me, you know, if I was the man that I needed to be, then that would be the answer. And, you know, the culture doesn't really facilitate that. The culture doesn't condition the women to say, well, yeah, I'm supposed to do the right thing by this guy. You know, what the culture suggests is that if you don't, then it's his fault. Somehow it's his fault. If you didn't feel compelled to give him what it is that he, you know, deserves, then somehow it's his fault still. Um, Culture offer awful sexualized culture, especially overly sexualized men. Yeah, you know, and it's more about you just dealing with her. Like, you hear this thing, you know what I'm saying, consistently across the board, whereas women want to be, you know, not want to be, but they suggest handling them, or can you handle me, or I'm too much for you to handle, I'm too much, you know, the handling them. And like, you know, handling a woman is really not in my foreseeable future. You know, Mike Tyson had handlers. Are you the heavyweight champion of the world? You know, dealing with a woman, like, dealing with, you know, I don't want to deal with a woman, you know. I mean, I'm responsible. If you're in a relationship with me, I'm responsible for you. You know, even that fact is not, it's not in this culture. In culture X, it doesn't exist. Those guidelines, um those order of operations, those customs, they don't exist. It's a lot of things that don't exist in culture X, whereas we're we're trying to push uh, culture X as if it's the thing. It's something like, and even when we talk about culture from the standpoint of dealing is bucking, yes, bucking. That's bucking is so funny. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, but dealing it's essentially just sex. It's sex, but we push this culture. And only thing I hear when we talk about culture, you know, on these, like black channels or black media, things. The only thing I hear when people talk about culture is, food, entertainment, and history. It's never really anything else. And I could sort of put, food. Now, food isn't necessarily entertainment, so I just keep food by itself. But it's usually food, entertainment, and history. You know what I'm saying? And bad history too. There's never a order of operations on how you get married and stay married. A lot of the, even relationship stuff, it's never about marriage. Even to the extent of dear future wifey. I saw that clip kind of circulating. I saw that Grinch did a vid. He at least used the thumbnail, of which I got to do better with the thumbnails when I'm doing these lives. You know what I'm saying? Because anything to get some eyes on anything that I have. You know what I'm saying? But um, like nobody talks. They don't talk about how the order of operations to get to the marriage, or the order of operations to get to there's no meeting your parents or whatever. There's no, like, it would make sense that, a woman goes to college and then she says, okay, cool, I'm going to be with the guy who was in his fourth year, when she's in her third year. And he's clearly, going to be what he's going to be. So, he's in his fourth year, you know, um, he's going to be a provider. He's going to be, you know, uh, consistent. You know, a lot of the bullshit is going to be off the table because he's already taken care of that. He's in a structured thing that's going to take care of the financial part. Met his parents. He met my parents, so on and so forth. Like, they're not conditioned to do that. They're not conditioned to say, okay, I'm in college, I'm 21, 22, and then this guy's picking me and I'm picking him. And then, we meet each other's parents. He asks for, her hand in marriage, asks her dad. And there's no customs. There's no order of operations. It's just, if y'all compatible, then y'all be together, and it's every man for themselves. And like, I reject it. I really reject it. I reject the idea that we can just do this willy-nilly and it somehow work. We can't do it chaotic, And the reason, like, I was thinking about this too when I talk about culture X. A lot of times, the reason that it sounds like women are really getting dumped on is because who benefits from culture X? Women benefit from these cultural issues. Women benefit financially, socially, culturally, obviously, but they benefit from the chaos. You know what I mean? Because the expectation is still that women get protected. It's like the one of the principles of culture X is that the women get freedom with no responsibility or consequence. And and the men, have all of the responsibility with no authority. And it's just it's hard. It's harder than it needs to be. Whereas in other cultures, you have people who understand their role to the point of there not being any confusion, and everybody just does their job. You know what I'm saying? Everybody just does their job. Everybody just does their part, and nobody's confused on what their part is. And a lot of what we have here is just chaos. It's just a whole bunch of chaos and things that people are, it inherently just produces chaos and more chaos and more chaos. And so that the conversation with my brother was really, really, like I say, I mean, I don't consider my brother to be, you know what I mean, like what would you call blue pill or whatever, but it's no other way to really describe what he did. There's no other way to really describe what he thinks. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like I knocked him. He's still a really good dude. He's my brother. Like, I love him. You know what I'm saying? He's my guy. You know what I mean? But, the issue that I would have had with, like, not that I couldn't think that way, because, like, I still have remnants of that. Like, if I just do this, then she'll just be this. And it's just like, nah, I just got to realize I can't talk her out of it. I can't talk her out of it. Like, I can't talk her out of, thinking the things that she already thinks. If she's on some, ain't no man gonna tell me what to do. I mean, I gotta just believe that that's what she is, And if she's that way, is that conducive to the kind of relationship that I want? Probably not, And I have to like extrapolate her beginning, like the talking phase. I gotta extrapolate her behavior over 6 months and a year. I had to kind of think ahead. We were talking about vetting for maybe like a few seconds. Some of the stuff I kind of look for, a woman's relationship with her dad is really important to me. A woman's relationship, if she has kids, because I'm not like vehemently against women with kids, but if you have kids, where you a wife, what's your relationship with your kid's father? You know what I mean? But really, what is your relationship with men? Which is why, what I'm saying, sexual history kind of matters to a certain extent. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not just a sexual thing, whereas dudes want to know that their penis is bigger than everybody else's, but it's really like a practical thing. Like, if your relationship with sex, and you're a heterosexual woman, if your relationship with sex is bad, then your relationship with men is bad. I mean, and also, if you have a propensity to be promiscuous, then it also presents a problem, with paternity. If we do have kids, you know what I'm saying? Not to say that everybody is, everybody who I ever, are going to be with, at this point, that we're going to have kids. But a lot of what I vet for has a lot to do with what is your relationship with men? How do you treat men you're not sexually attracted to? That's more of an observation thing. You know what I'm saying? How do you treat men that you're not attracted? How do you treat men who can't do anything for you? How do you talk about men? Even if it's negative, is it fair? Even, I mean, and not negative, even if it's a thing that will be perceived as negative, is it fair? Do you take responsibility for any of your breakups? Just how, like, and that's just like some of the stuff with regards to relationship with men. Ed Anderson he asks a very, and it's like one of those things you can kind of like slip in there when you're having a conversation. What do you what is it? Do women choose the father of the kids? And there's ways to ask it, you know what I mean? Not to where you're not actually asking it. It's ways to kind of like slip it in there in conversation. You can say, I believe that women choose the father of their kids. You can actually just say it as a statement, and if she believes that, then she'll just, whatever, you know what I mean? But you don't have to slip it in like it's, like it's not really a big deal. But like some of these things are just like conversation pieces to where you can get kind of to the point where you're vetting the woman and kind of understanding. But like, until you identify that there's a problem, a lot of times, man, we're vetting for the wrong things. Is, do she have a job kind of stuff? Like, is she on her own? You know what I'm saying? Is she independent? Is she this, that? Like, some of the stuff that we vet for is just like, it's dumb shit. It has nothing to do with what the woman is. It has nothing to do with the way she's cultured, you know, because before you can actually get a woman that is going to be a wife, or at least, you know, a life partner or whatever, you know, you gotta know what stock she comes from, you know. And not to say that all women from broken homes are going to be bad, you know, and that all women from, you know, two-parent homes or like structured homes at least are good. You know, like, as far as I know, Sierra was from a two-parent home. You know what I mean? Angela Simmons was from a two-parent home. You know what I'm saying? The choices that they made were not consistent with, you know, what it is that they came from. Chloe Bailey is from a two-parent home. Like, you know, and I'm not saying that these are bad people, but like, I ain't got a daughter, but I'd be damned if my daughter is butt naked on the internet. It's just not happening. I don't care if she's expressing herself or freedom or living in her, you know, feminine. I don't, none of that shit matters to me. You know, you're not gonna be naked on the internet. But this culture promotes over sexualization. It promotes hyper consumerism. And if we can't say it, or it's negative, or we can't say it because you're worried about that, and you should be worried about something. Well, it's too much of it. It's too much of it. It's so much of it that it's the only thing that exists. You know, and like, it doesn't not exist because she has a car, or it doesn't not exist because she has an education. It doesn't not exist because she's even polite. You know, it exists. You know, it exists in mass. You know, I was explaining, you know, like how the dynamic of culture kind of works. It's like this Western culture, which tells women that they're equal to men, of which, you know, I don't think that we need I don't think that we need for women to be equal to us, or need to say it, I should say. I don't think that we need to artificially say that women are equal to us so we can have a functioning society. You know, this thing, whereas like, you're bringing things to the table and I'm bringing things to the table, and then we're equals. You know what I'm saying? It's like, nah, I kind of know how this works. You know, I'm bringing something to the table and you're bringing something to the table, and you want to believe that your thing is equal to my thing. But it doesn't have to be equal. Matter of factly, if it is equal, it doesn't work because you resent me for it. You know, women will eventually resent you if you can't. And the only way for me to lead is to be in the front. And it can't be that we're equals. We can't be equals in the leadership role. Like, what leader is equal to his followers? You know, it just doesn't work that way. You know, so, you know, and then, you know, men are kind of responsible for most of innovation and industry and infrastructure. So it can't be a thing where we're equal. I mean, we don't need to be equal in order for this shit to work. We just need to respect each other and respect each other's, you know, roles. You know, like, you know, you don't need to be equal to LeBron to be on LeBron's team. He just needs to respect your role as you respect his, and you need to be where you need to be on the floor. You know, that's pretty much it. You know, and I've only heard good things for the most part about LeBron's leadership, which is why I use him as an example every time I hear, or every time I talk about leadership. You know, I don't hear that he's punched anybody or anything like that. You know, you know, MJ, and now more recently, was that Draymond Green. But it's not a matter of trying to um, I don't need to treat you as subhuman to be a leader. You know, matter of factly, that's actually anti-leadership. So we don't need to be equal, but that's what Western society, you know, or Western culture preaches. You know, and then you got American culture, which teaches and indoctrinates and cultures women to think that they're better. Women are smarter, you know, women are better at things, you know, boys suck, men suck, whatever, you know. And I think that that's like, it's okay, I guess, but then it's just like, we didn't give back everything that men do. And you can't really do without men in, you know, in society. And to say that women are better, like, look, I'm not saying, I would never go so far as to say that men are better, right? But if you say that women are better, then prove it, you know, just, you know, prove it. Like, I don't think that there's a lot of men walking around saying men are just better. Like, that's really not the thing. And the only way that it comes up as a conversation is when, there's a concerted effort to actually say or prove that women are better than men, you know. And it's just like, you got to raise boys up in this. And then the same boys have to somehow be leaders. Again, the culture is toxic, you know, the culture is toxic, and by extension or as a subset, you have culture X, which teaches the women that they're not only better than the men, but they don't need the men, you know. And if you believe that you don't need your men, well, then again, like I said before, just give back everything that men made. Because to let a man build it up and then say, okay, I don't need you anymore, is to say you don't need the thing that by extension is him, And if you don't need the thing that by extension is him, well, then you shouldn't have it anymore. So you don't get the house that I built after I build it and then say you don't need me. Well, I built the house. So you don't get to just say you don't need me. And it creates contention when biologically and psychologically we know that that's not true, And not to say that men, again, there's no saying for men that walks around, I'm strong and independent, I'm a strong independent man, don't need no woman. There's no such saying. Like, there's no saying the other way, because we really typically don't talk like that. Men don't. I mean, men don't really have desire to talk like that, I think, and I just think it just doesn't. There's no, there's no thing that makes us have to say that, because if you operating as a man, a lot of things are just implied. Independence is implied, but our bar is not independence. Like, the bar is not to just be able to pay my bills. The bar is to be able to provide, which insinuates that you have a family or somebody to help you with, say, not help you, but you have somebody to provide for. So it's about a family. Whereas with women, I mean, I guess independence is the bar. So, they say independent, and no problem with that. It's just the idea that you don't need a man is, it creates contention where it doesn't need to be. Because the moment she needs you, the moment that she's stranded on the road and she needs you to come get her, because a tire blew and then you can't, she can't do it by herself, she'll resent you. And she'll give you the story, like they always give you the story of, I'm just used to doing everything by myself. And it's like, you 20, you 25. When were you doing everything by yourself? He'll say at 18, like, when were you doing everything by yourself? Like, women that identify with culture X always have this story of them just doing everything by themselves. And what we have to understand is that that's not their actual history. That's one of those things that is coded in the culture, that's in that culture, in culture X. I mean, I'm saying that culture as if I'm not like smack dab in it. But you don't really get a lot of women who understand that story. You can't tell that story at 20. You know what I'm saying? Telling that story at 20, it sounds ridiculous. Like, oh, I've always done everything by myself. It's like, no, you haven't. You was a kid, remember? Like, where are you coming from? But everybody's independent at 22, because to them, it's, I'm 22 and I have a job and I can pay bills. I don't need no man, and, on a certain level, it's just like, well, if you're a working adult in a society that allows women to work, you should be able to pay bills. But is that the bar? It probably ain't, But culture X is one of those things where hyper consumerism is such a big thing that it's kind of hard to believe that anybody's really taking care of themselves, And yeah, but getting back to it, the way that the culture sees it, it's women first, and it's even women first when you're clearly the man in the situation. It's just women first. And I'm not against women. Like, I don't ever want, if women see the male leadership again as oppressive, then there's no way to convince them otherwise. and just trying to, for the sake of trying to just say, hey, I'm just here to help, with the example of them being stranded on the side of the road and needing you to fix their tire because they can't, or they just don't have enough strength to get the tire off or whatever. It's just like they resent you for that. I've seen it, I've heard it enough. They resent you for making them be a liar, for you making them, fake, because they're not the thing that they thought they was. They couldn't even do, change a tire, you know. And it's like when you dealing in culture that allows for women to, not allow, but they don't know another way. It's just like, yeah, men change tires. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like I'll call AAA, but if I don't want to use my AAA and my husband is down the street, keyword husband. If my husband is down the way, well, then I'll just get my husband and my husband will, do it. You know what I'm saying? Or like my husband will come and get me and then I'll drive his car and he'll stay. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not, if there's culture, it kind of cleans up a lot of the nonsense. Protection is not a hard conversation in culture that is, committed to structure, order, discipline. The boys already know where they stand. The women already know where they stand. In order for me to protect you, you have to understand that there's three things. You got to listen to what I say. You got to do what I say in the context of protection. You have to not get me into any altercation. So you got to listen to shit, do the shit, and don't get me into shit. It's pretty easy, But if we can't establish that because you want to do whatever you want to, well, then by all means, do whatever you want to. I can't force you to do anything different from what you're doing. But please understand that you forfeited protection from me. You forfeited protection from me. And that's fine. I'll let you do that. But you forfeited protection from me. I can no longer protect you if you get to do whatever you want to do. But the culture doesn't tell women that. The culture tells women that they should get protection like this, like universal health care. Like, I should just get it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, and if more women valued marriage and nuclear families, of which I just have to believe that they don't, that identify with this culture, then you would have a different outcome for them. You know what I mean? Because there are more women who dedicate themselves to school or to a job, you know what I mean, and won't dedicate themselves to a loving relationship in the same way, that will go to school. Like I saw, it was a tweet, I think that I'm about to call them Three Rap Crew, but Wrap Up Crew. I think they posted it, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe not, but it was something to the effect of, no, it was Six the Goddess. Six the Goddess actually tweeted it or something, which I must not follow her because I would have saw it. Because I see all of Shardae's tweets, you know what I'm saying? But Sister God tweeted something to the effect of like, women can go and take orders from the boss at their job, and because they're getting paid. You know what I mean? Which means that you know how to take orders. You're not one of these people who's just a rebel. It's just that what the culture does is that it allows for you to be the woman who doesn't take any instruction from her man, and to undermine it. Like, what if I got a better idea? It's just like, well, what if you got a better idea? It's not really even the point. You know what I mean? What if one of the, privates has a better idea than the sergeant? What if? Think about it like that. It's like, okay, cool. I'm still the sergeant. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't change anything. I'm still the sergeant. I'm still the person that's in charge. I'm still the lieutenant or whatever position, that is over you. If I'm the supervisor and you have a good idea, it doesn't change what we are. You don't then become the supervisor, and it's just like in this culture, male leadership is not promoted. It's not promoted. And thus you have a bunch of broken homes because a bunch of women think that they can do it by themselves. And they go in thinking I'll do it by myself, you know? And, you know, I think that it should be a rush to kind of like get away from that, you know, just to get away from it. It's not good to be around. You know, it's time to just leave whatever leaving means for you, you know, as a solution, you know, if avoiding it altogether, you know, but making yourself vulnerable to it and thinking that that means masculinity, you know, or whatever, like that makes you strong somehow. Like it's not bright. It's just not bright. It's not bright at all, you know. I'm gonna be vulnerable in this situation, and you leaving yourself open. Some things aren't meant to be, you know, vulnerable to. You know, I can't make myself vulnerable financially to a woman, because if I'm beholden to a woman financially, that puts me at a space whereas I don't like she can always go to somebody and get some money. I'm only gonna get money if I get money. You know, she always has an option of, you know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, you know, you can do the thing that women do, or, you know, there's government subsidies and things of that nature. There's programs, there's, you know, people that help you out. But we don't get that option as men, you know, we just don't get that option, you know. And the fact that we don't get that option is really the point of it, you know. That's why making yourself vulnerable, understanding that the consequences dire, and you're doing like somebody explained it. It's like I'm talking about marriage. It's like marriage as a contract right now. It was I was looking at Rollo, and it wasn't Rollo that said it, but I'm pretty sure he said it before. Marriage as it's currently constructed now is like going into a business contract that allows for your business partner to fuck you out of half of your money. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have any protections against it, and they do. So they have protections against you, but you don't have any protections against them. You know, and that's how it is. And it's like marriage is set up that way, and so many other things are set up that way. You know, like looking at the areas of activity. You know what I'm saying? And I was going. I mean, like I can't remember them off the top of my head. I did write them down when I was going. But entertainment, economics, education, law, sex, um, employment. Um, yeah, but looking at all the areas of activity, I'm like of all the areas of activity, politics. Currently, are they in any way pushing or even allowing for male leadership? Do they see it as valuable in any way, shape, or form? You know, and it's resounding no. You know what I mean? Not in this culture. In this culture, it does not. It does not. In none of the area of activities do they push male. I mean, war. I think that war is one of them. Maybe not. You know what I mean? But still, in the same, what you have is you have all the areas of activity in this of this culture. It's like they're not pushing for male leadership, male consequence, male responsibility, of course, but not male leadership in a sense that does this culture even promote good leadership? You know, like what are we trying to push? You know, are we just trying to push the idea that men are just supposed to be better, or are we giving them the means to be better from boys? You know, and if the ultimate decision lies with the woman in the wake of a marriage or in the wake of a nuclear family because it's not there anymore, then I'm only to believe that they don't want it. You know, they don't want the strong men that they say they want. They want weak men. You know, they want toothless lions. They want, lions with no claws, who have the ability to be lions, but they're only lions when you need them to be lions, you know. And it's like, now I got to be a lion all the time. I can't just be a lion when you want me to be a lion. I can't just be, now I need to be brave, or now it's like I haven't had any practice. So I'm not gonna be the thing that you need me to be when you need me to be it. I'm only gonna be, weak because I'm not cultured to be so, you know, and being strong or being, you know what I mean, a protector is there's no reward for it in this culture. There's no real reward for it in culture X, you know. And again, it's culture X because again, not all black people identify with it. Some black people are just done with that nigga shit, you know, because it's nigga shit. That's what it is. It's just nigga shit, you know. It's nigga shit. And then, like I say, identifying with it myself has, lend itself to me not really, you know, I don't know, man. Like you pick what you pick, you pick what you pick. And I really don't, like, I don't hate none of the women that I've dealt with in my life, you know, but it certainly gives context to why I've had the same problem over and over again. And not to say, part of it wasn't me, but I was of that culture. So you're picking like, and still am somewhat of that culture. I just have I'm conscious of the decision that I'm making now, and, I mean, if you tired of it, like I'm tired of it, like anybody would be tired of making the same decision. And you just say, well, it's at least time for me to leave that alone. As far as where I go from here, I mean, solutions exist: interculturally dating, interracially dating, passport bros, SYSBM, like those are options, you know. I don't think I'm a MIG talent, so you say it, but all in all, there are solutions even after the decision to leave that culture alone, but you have to be willing to, you have to be willing to leave it alone to begin with. And, just that conversation, like I said, with my brother was really, I mean, I spoke to him before and he gave me the impression that he was going to have different arguments, but it was just that I feel this way. I just feel this way, and I was like, I said, I mean, as much as it's frustrating, honestly, but, who knows, man? Who knows? Because I can't call it, but who knows? But yeah, I'm gonna get on out of here, man. You get us on our playback. We got one almost subscriber to get to 400. I'm saying, go ahead, get us over 400. Yeah, I probably try to do one of these later on today. I got another few things that I've seen that I would love to talk about. And that's my time, man. It's Mike Perkins, and I'm out.